American rock group formed in Baltimore, Maryland, back in 2013.
Knew there was something off about them.
Yeah, exactly right. You were getting some bad juju off that. I don't blame you. You probably deal with it every time we meet.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles, you bastard. My name's John. His name is Andy. Yeah, baby's in remand right now. She'll be there for a while for the wounding of a rent-a-cop and a ram raid in Sunshine. More on that later. But first, we have a chat to listen to, selected by Andy. Andy, what do you got?
Oh, well, today I have in store for you and the rest of the folks out there a band called Angel Dust and a track by them called Jesus Head. So, I assume, judging by the look on your face when I mentioned the band's name, you are not familiar with the band Angel Dust, are you?
No.
Okay, fair. All right. And I assume you have no idea what a Jesus head is. I know the song and I don't. So, okay, good. That makes two of us. I'm in good company. All right. Well, please go off and check out Jesus Head by Angel Dust and then come back and let us all know what you think.
Will do. Interesting start there. You get this sort of almost jangle guitar. Feels quite sunny, like a sunny morning almost. Bit of optimism and yeah, nice. And then in comes his relative, that's completely different character. This sort of lovely bluesy tone to it. And I'm sure there was like keyboard notes just underneath the sort of bluesy motif, just propping it up and raising up like a sound hammock. Sounded great. I am going to have to listen to that again in all of it, but yeah, keyboards definitely.
Flesh and blood on soul. Some will give it away and never grow old. Tears in the sun, blood for the song. There's a river so cold now. Hold me tight, freezing. My lungs are barely breathing right now. Forget a little bit closer to death. We running blood on the Jesus head, blood on the Jesus head, blood on the Jesus head. We running blood on the Jesus head.
I'm a little confused here. Is this video of the same band? Because it looks nothing like what they sound like at all. And then performing live as well. I don't think you're going to get much sort of stage diving with this sort of sound. Um, yeah, the vocals are not what I expected from the start at all, or even the visuals. Um, it's really they're quite thin. And they're bolstered, I think it's multi-tracking rather than more than one person, to give it a bit more substance. But yeah, it's really it dampers down the rest of it, actually. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a problem with these vocals or not. But it really sort of takes away from the overall sound, and it makes it almost homogenized. Because there's some nice stuff going on there, but it's really it's half of what I thought it was going to be. I was expecting almost some sort of like Chris Robinson type vocals coming in, or whatever. Uh, no, it doesn't have to be that, but yeah, this is odd, and the visuals do not match at all. It's just so strange. It really is. Okay, let's see how it goes. Oh, and the other thing, sorry, is blood on the Jesus head, but you mentioned the other times. Again, there might be some sort of idiom that I'm not familiar with. It means nothing to me. It's weird because blood on the Jesus head sort of, you think of crown of thorns, thorn of crowns. But that's an object, and they're talking about an activity, putting blood on the Jesus head. Um, is this some sort of clocking up your sins or something? I don't know. Really odd. Is this some Catholic thing? No idea. Let's see how it goes.
Touching blood on the soul. Some carry the weight they never show. When it's your time to go, you gotta go into a river so cold now. Hold me tight.
Okay, so we got a really nice guitar flourish there, but again, because I don't know why it's mixed or whatever, it was really dampened down and didn't really have the impact that I kind of expected. Maybe it's just me. Then we start the second verse and without the guitars, and you can really hear the bass for the first time, and it sounds great actually. The drumming's been really good always, some dynamics going on there. Um, the bass is really guttural, you know. It sounds great. And then with the drums ushering them in, come back in the guitars. Yes, it's nice the dynamics, what's going on. I'm just getting used to this sound because it is a fraction of what I expected. Starting to warm up a bit now, nice stuff from the drums. I like that. Yeah, interesting. So after the second course, I guess, um, I kind of went for a jam, and you could almost feel it loosening up as it went along, um, and becoming more expressive. Um, so the second half of the song, or the final third of the song, I enjoyed a lot more at the start, to be honest with you. And they loosened up, and then this other, there's sort of dynamics of the drums again, and then this higher sound came in, and this keyboard or guitar, this sort of warbling sound, and it kind of keyed up the tempo kind of slipped a little bit, and they did some really interesting stuff there. And then there was more oomph in that last 20 seconds than there was in the whole rest of the song, where it sort of went into this sort of, I don't know, you see on TV episodes where they sort of reverse stuff. It's like go back to the beginning of the episode again. It was like that. You had a lot of compression and reversible sounds and everything, and the drums were kicking in. It sounded great, and that could have gone on or developed in some way quite easily because it's quite a short song. So yeah, interesting. Not sold on the first half of it. Really not sold on the vocal, the way it's delivered, produced, mixed. But enjoyed the sort of second half of it, and the when the instruments sort of were let loose a little bit. Yeah, well, that's my take anyway. Well, we'll see what Andy has to say about this. Yeah, very interesting stuff. And it does not look like the same band. What you're hearing doesn't look like it was produced by the guys who were playing on stage and stage diving and kicking off and everything. This had like a tenth of the energy of what I saw there. So that's really, the disconnect there is really weird. Okay, let's find out. We have to find out more. Let's go back and chop it over with Andy.
All right, John, you are back. So please tell us your thoughts on this band Angel Dust and this one listen you've given to their track Jesus Head.
Okay, so the track starts with this sort of bright jangle from a guitar that has this feel of almost morning sunshine, sort of potential and optimism. It is joined in short order by another guitar, but this is a brother from another mother. It's got a knowingly sort of bluesy yawn to its tone. It really is lovely, and really subtly, the notes from this are propped up by very gentle, subtle keyboard notes that come through that act almost, as I said, as a sonic hammock. We get three strikes from the drums, and then a hop and a skip and a jump, and we're into the song. He opens with flesh and blood on a soul. Some will give it away and never grow old. Surely not give it away, give it away, give it away now again. No, can't be. So my initial reaction to this is the vocals are quite thin. They're bolstered by multi-tracking, I think, rather than it be multiple vocalists. But it wasn't the sound I was expecting at all from the brief sort of introduction. I was expecting something more like a sort of Chris Robinson, for example, something like that.
Mm.
Actually, the whole sound of it, I think it's with the vocals in, it sounds a bit more softened and a bit more almost poppy, for want of a better word, than I expected as well. It kind of seems a little bit disconnected from the initial intro and also the imagery of the video and the band sort of playing live. I'll get into that in a sec. So there's some really nice dynamics with the drums that sort of come in and out. And I think the drums are probably my favorite bit of this song for the most part. But it goes into the next couple of lines. It says something about hold me tight and freezing and about his lungs are barely breathing now and we're a bit closer to death. Yeah, I don't know. They then sing about putting blood on the Jesus head. And they repeats this several times. This is an odd phrase to me. I mean, clearly it's some sort of idiom or saying which I completely am not familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
For me, you say Jesus head, apart from Jesus lizard, for some reason pops into my head, but it brings up the image of the crown of thorns, or as Echo Bunny would say, the thorn of crowns. But this is described as an activity, putting blood on the Jesus head rather than an object. So I don't know if it's some strange sort of variation of confessing your sins or piling on your misdeeds to something which can then absolve you, perhaps. I don't know.
Mm.
The overall effect is that the music, and particularly the guitars, seem to smooth out their edges. It does remind me of the band Mother Earth, who started off as a jazz band exemplar. And then they ditched that, and Matt Data went for something a bit more sort of almost mainstreamy and poppy. And I think this kind of reminds me of that sound. I do believe it's probably the vocals that are really throwing me here. So we get a little flourish on one of the guitars in brief as we exit that first sort of uh, tranche of vocals. Um, but again, it's just slightly, it doesn't have the impact. Uh, I think it's the mix is a little bit homogenized, perhaps. I'm not sure. Anyway, we enter the next verse without the guitars, just the rhythm section. And I didn't catch it before. So here I can hear the bass along with aforementioned drums, which the drums are really decent in this track. And the bass here sounds great. Um, it's not a million miles away from that throaty growl of Jean-Jacques Burnel, to be honest with you. It's a
Mhm.
very, it's getting towards there. Probably isn't quite as sort of, motorbike as his, but it's really close. And it sounds fantastic. So he sings like a few lines and then the guitars rejoin. And we have that repeated sort of hold me tight and blood on the Jesus head refrain. Um, Again, we get a musical section after the chorus, but this is the jam that the band they're jamming out for the rest of the song. And here's where I actually started to really enjoy the song. So I think for me, there was nothing wrong with it. The vocal track, as for one of a word, how it was delivered just didn't really sit well with me. And I think it sort of brought everything down. But once that was released, and I almost felt there was a release of the band as well. They started to jam, and it seemed like they were let loose. And they became more and more sort of expressive. Um, you get some nice bits, like there's a stutter step from the drums, the guitars sort of rise almost in prominence, like they're peeking out of the mist. And then we get this higher motif, and I think it's another guitar. It might be some sort of synthesized thing. It's hard to tell. But this comes in and it really starts to shake everything up. So you almost get a drifting of the tempo to and I think it's really pleasing actually. And it then sort of starts to drift off into an almost a fever dream, um, which culminates in this little brief section at the end of 20 seconds or so where it's like I like the reaction to there's a bit like a TV show where they go sliding doors moment and they compress everything and run it backwards at high speed, and it's kind of like that. You got these compressions of sound, some backward stuff, compressed, squeezed, reversed, and to be honest, and the drumming on that bit as well was really nice. And the whole thing that had more oomph than the first minute and a half, just that 20 seconds. I really appreciate it. It could have gone on for longer. And then the whole thing sort of like disappeared in a puff of smoke. So yeah, it was an interesting song and it's sort of mixed reaction for me. I'd say it's just the disconnect, and perhaps it didn't help having the video of the band as well, because you saw these images of them playing and hurling themselves around and stage diving and all this sort of stuff. And um, it didn't really replicate what you were hearing in the music. It's like, I don't know, seeing ABBA stage dive or something. It just wasn't right. And that's what sort of threw me. And I will say as well, I just don't think the vocal track stood up to the rest of the what was a really good song. And particularly that really shone for me in the instrumental bit, which shows it held me back anyway, whether other listeners it may not have done. Um, so I just think it just didn't work that bit, and that's the bit which sort of dragged it down. And then when it went, it released it all,
Hmm.
and I really enjoyed the second half immensely.
Okay,
That's my
excellent.
take.
No, I appreciate it. That's an interesting one. Yeah, these I don't. While I feel that the vocals don't stand out, I also don't feel like they take away. But it is. I do appreciate the fact that you ingested it a bit differently, and that those are your feelings. And it's interesting to hear that. But yeah, really, I'm a big fan of this song. Big fan of. At least we can both agree the music in this is got lovely tones to it, and some of the movements that they go on in this is a lot of fun. And I'll add a little bit of context as to why the footage may not have aligned with the overall sound that you were getting as I dig deeper into the band here. But thank you, John, for giving them a listen. Angel Dust, stylized where the S in dust is a dollar sign, is an American rock group formed in Baltimore, Maryland, back in 2013.
Knew there was something off about them.
Yeah, exactly right. You were getting some bad juju off that. I don't blame you. You probably deal with it every time we meet. Uh, but originally made up of members of Turnstile and Trapped Under Ice, the band has undergone multiple lineup changes, with lead vocalist Justice Tripp being the band's sole constant member. And the band's current lineup consists of Justice Tripp on lead vocals and occasional guitar, Steve Marino, rhythm guitar and backing vocals, uh, and also bass. He would then later go on to play Zachariah Ghost Tribe, who would then take over bass from 2023 until the present. Jim Carroll on lead guitar and Nick Lewis on drums. They have released 6 studio albums to date, the most recent being Cold to the Touch, which was released in February of this year, 2026. And the band were previously signed to Roadrunner Records between 2018 and 2025, but they are currently signed to Run for Cover Records. And I will say that in the video, you saw a lot of live footage. Obviously, you alluded to it not matching up with the sound that you were hearing. That a lot of that live footage from their performances, obviously there were shots where it looked like they were in Vegas driving down the strip and stuff like that, or walking around. You saw a lot of the neon lights. But in a lot of the actual live footage was shot in the Auto Bar, as well as the Baltimore Soundstage, 2 big hometown venues, um, which I've had the pleasure of both performing in and just attending to watch concerts. So it was really cool to see some of that hometown stuff peppered in throughout this video. But go on, John.
Were they from different times? Because it kind
Like,
of
were they
struck
time
me
travelers?
that the wandering around with the neon lights and that, and then wandering up that hill and stuff, seemed more um it just seemed more recent, and that maybe the footage is older or something like
It
that.
might be. I mean, it also does that. Are you also saying is what educating that question the disparity between the sound and of what they're releasing now versus the footage
Yeah.
that look? It's that this is probably a recent show where they're playing songs from other albums that they've released. As you probably have guessed by now, Baltimore is a huge home for the hardcore and post-hardcore punk scene. Turnstile is literally the face of that genre in America, and they're from Baltimore. But we've also listened to Pianos Become the Teeth. I think I may have alluded to a band called End It, which is another, one of the several big name bands that have come from that genre. Now, a lot of those bands, as we've seen with Turnstile, and as we've talked about with Pianos Become the Teeth, when you listen to Genevieve, which didn't scream hardcore or even post-hardcore. It had this more post-punky kind of sound to it. They've spread their wings a little bit farther and started dabbling in other sounds as they've gotten older and a little bit more settled down with their older age. So you're seeing them probably playing some of. I mean, you're seeing the hardcore stomping and the stand moshing that goes out into the crowd and stuff like that. So I think it's still they're just harkening back to some of their other stuff that they're playing live, but still in more recent shows. If that kind of makes sense to you. So go and again, yeah,
Yeah,
follow up.
just really briefly, we've said this loads of times that, in this country, punk and that DIY sort of attitude then begot post-punk, and it was a gateway for bands to go in and go off and do other stuff. And I think in America, hardcore's done the same thing. It's got the kids to pick up instruments and scream and make noise, and then they develop into other sounds
Yeah,
after that, a
yeah,
lot of time.
exactly, and not only from like a musicianship standpoint or a genre standpoint and how they grow and blossom, but I think that picking up stuff and just getting it out of your system is probably
Yeah.
almost like therapeutic and cathartic too, which helps them mature and grow the right way for them and what they've come from and seen in their youth, and it kind of helps them get through that, and then they can mature as an individual and as a musician, and this is what we get, right? So yeah, that's a great observation and comparison, John. um So in 2019, Billboard noted them as one of the most important bands in broadening the scope of what hardcore punk is. Kerrang included their 2019 album, Pretty Buff, as one of their 25 best albums of 2019 and named them the best international breakthrough act, and Loudwire named the album as one of the best metal albums of 2019. So, and even then, that term metal is probably used a little bit loosely here. There's shades of heavier stuff in this, but that does not make them a heavy band, at least not in totality. Uh, the band has been categorized as, because as you'll see here, soft rock, pop rock, hardcore punk, and melodic hardcore. Their music often incorporates elements of surf rock, grunge, alternative rock, and pop. Their sound has evolved, and they often like to bend and switch genres between and sometimes on the same album. Their 2013 demo, Extra Raw, was described by Kerrang as a scrappy, lo fi bundle of punk, while their subsequent material was more melodic. So there you go again. Their first album, they're really showing their youth and angst and stuff like that. Lo fi bundle of punk is how it was described. And yet nothing from what you heard would have conveyed lo fi or probably bundle of punk. So there you are. Revolver magazine described the band's music as a curveball due to its relationship to the hardcore scene, despite also including heartfelt saxophone, strummy acoustic guitar, and an overwhelming amount of positivity. And in another article, as about as catchy and fun and as catchy and fun can get. Sorry, you're smiling. What's on your mind over there? I've got to know. Inquiring
When
mind.
you're reading off stuff is like, and worst of all, an abundance of optimism.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
that's the worst crime.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, when it comes with the expectations of music from a place like
It is.
Baltimore,
It's funny.
yeah, yeah, exactly. They're like, holy shit, I caught a glimpse of sunshine. So which is very antithetical to the all in black kind of grungy punk music scene that we tend to gravitate toward here in our blue collar scrappy city. In an article for Clash, writer Robin Murray described their music as between a rough around the edges Lemonheads with Elvis Costello vocal melodies. The band has cited influences including the aforementioned Lemonheads, The Replacements, The Feelies, Bad Brains, Violent Femmes, and Greg Sage. Vocalist Justice Tripp has cited his main influences as James Ismene of Fury of Five and Iggy Pop of the Stooges. In 2025, the band announced its signing to Run for Cover Records with the release of a double A-side single, The Beat and The Knife. Two new members also joined at this time, guitarist Jim Carroll, also of American Nightmare and the Hope Conspiracy. That's another name that kind of conveys our attitude towards sunlight and joy. And drummer Nick Lewis. They later announced their sixth studio album, Cold to the Touch, which was released, as I mentioned, February 13th of 2026. And it's this album that features the track I had you listen to today, Jesus Head. So this is some of their newest material. Ryan Dillon of Glide magazine penned an article titled Angel Dust Blends Raw Poetry with Unapologetic Punk on Unpredictable Cold to the Touch. And in it he wrote, punk music is entering an exciting renaissance period. The genre, which never truly left, is reaching new heights of popularity thanks to acts like Turnstile and their post-punk family, Geese and Squid, who are reshaping the way people think about and approach the ageless art form. Punk, like any lasting genre, has evolved to incorporate subtle influences from across the music spectrum, slowing its blistering tempos and incorporating infectious melodies without sacrificing the hardcore anarchy that defined punk through its lifespan. This new era of punk is even more open minded than before, and collaboration is at its heart. When you take some of the most exciting members of this movement and put them all under one banner, you get Angel Dust, the Baltimore based punk supergroup. Eli Enos, of our beloved Pitchfork, reviewed the album and noted the following. On Angel Dust's sixth album, Cold to the Touch, Justice Tripp revisits some of the darker subjects from his early work across a set of songs that are heavier, warier, and more pissed off than 2023's Brand New Soul. He begs for his freezing body to be held tight on Jesus' head, laments that his internal permafrost remains unmeltable on zero, and pays a visit to the place where dreams go to die in the knife to exact revenge upon someone, himself. Tripp's writing has become less brutally pointed as his music has become looser, settling into a form of vibey psych rock that's nearly unrecognizable from Angel Dust's Ramones via Bad Brains origins. Meanwhile, Sam Holden of punknews.org offered up the following in his review of the album. This record is basically a rock record written and recorded by a hardcore band. It doesn't play in the ambient or pop spheres that Turnstile did. It's a little more interested in the more languorous end of rock music, though without losing touch with their home turf, so to speak. Man on Fire is a mellow ballad with a sting in the tail, for example. The Knife is dangerously close to a hardcore incarnation of prog rock at points, and the intro to Jesus Head is woozy California Vibes 101. But when you consider this record houses 11 songs in a mere 26 minutes, you could tell that the hardcore scene has its hooks firmly in these dudes, and they aren't trying to shake them off either. This isn't a record in which Angel Dust hark back. It's a record in which they move forward, not in an epoch defining way, but in a way that brings them to the very force of hardcore slash alt rock discussions, I would suspect. Adding, with this record, we have a collection of fully produced songs from a band continuing to evidence their exceptional skill for songwriting at a time when the zeitgeist is more accepting of this kind of stuff than ever before. This does, of course, make me feel slightly concerned that Angel Dust will belong wholly to the won't will belong wholly to the scene for not much longer. But then that's the old adage: if you love something, set it free. Fly free, Angel Dust, just not too free. The scene still needs you. And over at When the Horn Blows, writer Josh Pook touched on this track whilst reviewing the album, noting around track 4 is where expectations are confidently spiraled out the window, and the real fun begins. This journey of discovery starts with the track Jesus Head, opening on a clean and silky smooth chord progression. It's tough to see where it will take you, but as the song joins in piece by piece, it creates this beautiful and harmonious blues influenced masterpiece. I find it truly fascinating how they keep switching up the pace and really surprising their audience with the layout of this album. So, these lyrics: flesh and blood on a soul. Some will give it away and never grow old. Tears in the sun, but for some, there's a river so cold now. Hold me tight, I'm freezing. My lungs are barely breathing right now. We get a little closer to death. We're putting blood on the Jesus head. Blood on the Jesus head. Blood on the Jesus head. We're putting blood on the Jesus head. Flesh and blood on a soul. Some carry the weight they never show. When it's your time to go, you gotta go. Into a river so cold now. Hold me tight, I'm freezing. My lungs are barely breathing right now. We get a little closer to death. We're putting blood on the Jesus head. 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 We're putting blood on the Jesus head. So while I don't have a clear idea of what it means to put blood on the Jesus head, I do think that there's a clear sense of like this woundedness, human suffering, and the burdens we carry beneath the surface. Also, this idea of flirting with or being close to at times death, with this idea of being cast into a river. You often think about that with, death. We've talked about it all the way back in The Riverman, and this idea of, that being a symbol for passage into the afterlife. And then putting blood on the Jesus head. If you take it as you were talking about, this adorned with a crown of thorns, nailed to the cross, This is the lead up to one of the most important sort of storied deaths in, the world, in the death and then subsequent resurrection of Jesus Christ. So maybe there's some tie in there. But it's really interesting, I think, lyrically. You may not have been much of a fan, but I do actually enjoy the vocals in this track. But I'm glad that you gave it a listen and your honest feedback, regardless of what our different opinion might be. So thank you so much for giving this a spin, John.
You're more than welcome.
Excellent. One more for old Baltimore. All right, guys, out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you made of this track, Jesus Head by Angel Dust. And feel free to drop any comments down in the field below about like other tracks by them that we should listen to or other bands we should check out. Always love hearing from you guys, so please feel free to drop your comments down there. Also, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. We really do appreciate it. And hopefully, John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.